Welcome to the Forge of the Rage Quit Wire.
Forged by steel and iron and other metals.
Yeah, various things.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Blacksmiths today, and I feel like we got to do this because other podcasts are also starting to talk about Blacksmiths.
Yeah, fine. We'll just follow the lead of these other guys.
I feel like it. I've tried to hold off for a while just because I feel like some people have jumped in too soon on certain things, but I feel like there's been enough time now where people have been able to play with it.
I wish that we had a little bit more Longshank statistics on all the captains or all the masters. For example, I know Furnace is rated really high right now, but there's only like 11 games recorded or something like that. So I wish we had a little bit more data, but people are asking for a review of those Blacksmiths, and so it's time to give them one.
So, Chris, we got ourselves another awesome guest on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Pete.
It's definitely not you. We got with us today Lance Becker. Lance is, he works with Muse on Minis.
Wait a second, do you mean Last Chance Lance?
I do mean Last Chance Lance.
Oh my God.
And he's from the Des Moines, Iowa area, and he's also one of the co-hosts of The Pitch, which is a podcast that everybody should definitely check out. So, Lance, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I certainly appreciate it, and I will need to take a little bit of a break to go kill Dan White for that nickname.
I think it's going to be one of those things like now people are going to see you, and it's just going to become a thing.
Oh my God.
I think they should change your name to that on Longshanks.
Yeah, that should be your nickname.
Oh, that's a pot. I actually might do that just to troll Dan back.
You know, you might as well just accept it.
I'm going to try to get to the top of the Iowa rankings. If I can do that, I'll change it to No Chance Lance, and then I'll just take that screenshot and I'll make it my profile picture for everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we're basically getting you on because I know just from listening to your podcast, you guys recently dropped like the top masters of the Blacksmith.
Too much debate. Yes, we went controversial and we listed the 6 masters that were available, and I gave my rank 6 through 1 in the top 10 countdown style of who I liked for captain, and we had people on social media as well as Discord telling half of them telling, "Oh, that was some neat inside information. We certainly appreciate you guys doing something like that," and the other half saying, "You're a bunch of raging idiots. What the hell is wrong with you? Why would you have it in that order?"
We're definitely not, alien to that because, like, we just laid down our union podcast, and I got some people that, are, you could call them experts, but they basically were like, yeah, you guys got some unique ideas, and it's just like, that's the great thing about this game, though, is everybody can interpret the same information differently and rank them accordingly, and especially the Blacksmiths because they're so new.
I've been on war gaming podcasts long enough now, between Muse on Minis Miami, and now this, that I'm 100% open to the idea that half of the internet is going to hate me for anything I say on mic, and the other half is going to think that I'm, have somewhat valid points, and I will take both of those gladly.
Man, I'd be happy if half the internet liked what I had to say.
That might be generous.
I think, yeah,
I was being general.
I think that it's mostly they just hate my guts,
which is okay.
I revel.
You will find those few fans out there that will occasionally say, a little private message on a text board. They won't say anything publicly, but they'll say, "Hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. Sorry you're getting beat up on the boards." Now I appreciate that. Thank you. But it's not going to stop me or change my mind or anything like that. But I'm willing to have the conversation. That's the whole point of doing this. We're throwing out our opinions out into the ether, and we're expecting people to listen to them and make their own opinions. If we generate discussion, that's fine. I'm willing to be told that I'm stupid and wrong, and I certainly am. I'm definitely made some mistakes on some issues on things, but I obviously can't pronounce the word sulcation.
Sulfetian.
That's how I pronounce it.
I think it's
I've been yelled at. It's Solthican or something like that. And I heard Matt and Rich saying it at the pundit party at SteamCon, and they were doing a completely different pronunciation. I don't know how you British people do it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. That's the thing I get corrected on the most, and I'm just like, I'm awesome. Giving up the fact that I will never be able to pronounce that name correctly. But whatever.
Yeah, and I always think
if it's just a pronunciation thing as it relates to American versus UK, then I'm willing to accept those pronunciations will be different. We have those, but I don't know how some people get pronunciations out of that spelling of that.
I don't know.
Right, quick poll. Is it fillet or fillet?
It's fillet.
I call her fillet just because that's what the British people do.
Here's why it's fillet. Because America fought a war of independence, so we didn't have to say it like that.
Well, there goes all the UK listeners.
I gotta go.
Nice knowing you. Glad you stopped by to listen for the first dozen episodes.
That's right.
We've completely alienated a continent. Fantastic.
Well done. And just kind of like, I'm going to kind of move this to transition, though, is that you want to know if everybody thinks alike, nobody's thinking. So if anything, we're challenging kind of like the old guard, because I feel like, I'm newer onto the scene, and so is Chris a little bit. And, we look at things differently, and hopefully that can spark some controversy and some different ideas.
How long have you guys been playing?
So I've been playing since Season 3 started, so about a year. And Chris, how long have you been playing again?
Yeah, since about the start of Season 2.
And how long have you been playing, Lance?
Oh, early Season 1, mid-Season 1.
Nice. It's got to be really cool to see the game develop, like, from that time.
Yeah, I mean, because I came in on War Machine and Hordes. My first big miniature game was War Machine and Hordes, hence why I got tied up in the whole Muse on Minis thing, because it was kind of our local group was doing it, and they liked the way I had conversations, but they liked my radio voice, so I was able to come on and do stuff, and on top of helping them with the edit. And I came in right at the beginning of Mark II for that, so I didn't get to see the earlier versions of it. Now we're getting to see Mark III for it. But the fact that Steamforge is putting out these errata relatively quickly and doing the Season 2, I'm watching the game evolve at a much faster rate than I think a lot of other miniatures games go.
Yeah.
I guess unless you're thinking like Games Workshop over 40 years and you're doing however many editions of Warhammer they have out there. But no, being able to see the game evolve, and I feel like I enjoy games of all kinds, specifically board games. I have if you were in the room with me, I have the giant board game library behind me. Everybody's got the IKEA box shelves just full of board games. I have that behind me.
Nice.
So I really like rules. And it's been an obsession of mine since I was a kid. Is that I always wanted to understand how things work, but to be able to watch them take the rule set for Guild Ball and to adapt it season by season to say, okay, people are not having fun with this. This is too much. I was there running demos next to the first U.S. championships at Gen Con with Jamie Perkins and Bryce Johnson, and I was talking with both of them. And I'm like, what is this? He's like, oh, this is the final 10 tables for the U.S. championships. I'm like, all right, what's the team layout? He's like, we got a fisherman, we've got a brewer, and then we have 8 tables of morticians all running the exact same lineup. And I'm kind of like, okay. I'm like, do we think there's a problem there? And then Bryce, in his usual Scottish accent, oh yeah, it's a big fucking problem.
I love listening to him talk.
Oh, he's so much fun, and I'm surprised he didn't drop a C word, but that's just how he works. And yeah, we were just kind of, and the top table was was Jordan Knock and Brian White, both running the exact same army. I think maybe one model switched. But they knew what was broken and they knew how to break it. So then Steamforge saw that, went back to the drawing board like that next, cycle of rules and said, okay, we've got to make changes. Otherwise, this game is going to get real stale real fast. People are going to find out a way to break it and they're going to make it not fun anymore. And so every season is just a more and more fine tuning to what's broken and what isn't, to the point to now where I feel almost in Season 3, and there you'll have some people that'll argue that Blacksmiths is really broken, or that maybe Thresher's definitely a problem. Don't get me wrong; he's going to get eroded into the ground. I'm almost sure of it.
I'm so excited.
I'm almost waiting for that to happen before I make any kind of.
I really want it to happen right before those big tournaments during the spring.
Yeah. Adepticon is going to be their big drop for the new tournament rules. I'm sure right around then we're going to get a nice Thresher errata to make sure that everybody goes to the Adepticon that's bringing Thresher is not going to have as good of a time, I would hope, unless they want to see it actually play itself out. But I was hoping that US SteamCon was kind of a good viewpoint of that.
Yeah, see, Chris and I were saying that if they just nerf Thresher, I don't think that's going to be enough, though, just because Millstone's pretty rough, Tater's pretty rough.
Yeah. No, I mean, and farmers are a goddamn nightmare to play into. I've got a local guy who's a very, very good player, and he's recently picked up the farmers. You may have seen his stuff on the Guild Ball supporter pages, the zombie one. But he's a hell of a player, and I got to play into Thresher with him the first time, and he didn't even play Millstone. And I had one of the roughest games I've ever had. I'm just like, okay, this is a little bit broken. So going back to my original point, the idea is that I feel like they're fine tweaking everything to where the new models coming out, while powerful, i.e. the Blacksmiths, as we were talking about today, none of them are so broken that they're game altering.
I agree with that. There isn't, the only ones that are game altering, meta altering are some of the farmers' models. I don't think that any of the blacksmiths have that much strength. Although I do think that they are probably better at scoring because they have such non-linear threats to the ball.
Absolutely. No, they have advantages that other teams don't, which is what we want from expansion teams. I mean, that's how Guild Ball is going to continue, is if you're going to have teams that are going to be able to play the game differently than other ones so that you're getting different experiences. We were talking because Matt and Rich came over to the U.S. during War Machine Weekend, which is a War Machine event, but they were running Guild Ball stuff kind of on the side. So we were drinking with them late one night, as one is to do with Matt Hart if you ever get a chance to meet the guy. And he was asking us you were some of the beginning pundits in the game, and he was saying, what do you guys want? Do you want more players on a team, or do you want more teams? And our answer to him, kind of thinking about it logically, was just, we want more teams, because after a while, every team just becomes the same. You start, a new player comes out that shores up a weakness the team has, and then eventually the teams become monotonous.
Yeah.
You don't want that. And so the fact I feel like they're doing these little limited edition teams, including the minor guilds that we're getting here now that are only going to have 6 men in the box, 2 that come from their main guild and them for an 8-man roster, lets them really focus and tighten down what they want to do so that this one team does something extremely well, but then has enough weaknesses that it doesn't have to have model bloat to like offset them or anything like that. So to answer your question from 16 hours ago, I think the rule set on them is definitely being fine-tuned, and to watch the game develop to the point to where they can release models that are interesting, fun, but not game-breaking is very cool to see.
Yeah, so when we get people on, we like to go ahead and have them share a rage quit story. So we'd like to have you go ahead and share one with us.
Okay. Well, first thing I want to say, having listened to a few of the back episodes to this, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, it feels like a lot of people come on this and then raise their hands in the air saying, ho, 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 I never rage quit.
Yeah, it's like people are like, oh, not me, I've never done it.
Well, but we were also finding people that are pretty good, and so they're probably proud of the fact that they don't have to rage quit.
Yeah.
I think that's probably partly true, but it feels like a little bit of horseshit, because there's got to be games. And I'm not saying it's at tournaments. Again, I was listening to this while I was work traveling, and I was listening to it in an airport, and I'm listening to an episode, and I'm listening to person A say, oh, well, I never rage quit because that's just bad manners and blah, blah, blah. And then I flip to the next episode, next rage quit story. Well, I would never rage quit because that's just unsportsmanlike. I'm just like, what is the point of this segment? Come on, guys.
I did like Bill, who he did share with us his one rage quit story.
He did, which was very entertaining. And again, having been in the War Machine meta, I have seen many, many rage quits.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I would say, and I'm going to be the first one maybe to jump off the boat on this, that there's definitely been times where I've rage quit games. Not to the point where I've like walked away from the game and then never played again, or that I like flipped a table or anything like that. But it's definitely in casual games where we're playing and something goes wrong and the whole game's going to go sideways. I'm like, do you want to waste the next 2 hours killing me? Because that's what's going to happen. Can we just reset and do that? Or if I'm in a tournament and, I'm playing against a relatively amazing player and I do one thing wrong and then the whole game slides sideways and I just kind of sit there with a sullen look on my face going, well, this is over. Like, I don't have any choice in this matter anymore. And I will probably look like I've rage quit the game mentally. Not physically. I've not walked away from the table or anything like that. But there's definitely been games where I've just completely checked out of it because I just said, well, I'm losing this. And even though I probably would have had a chance, maybe I could have come back, maybe I could have put a few more points on the board. So I'm sure I have rage quit before. And if there's people that are listening to this that have played me and I have rage quit on you and I'm wrong, I'm open to be wrong about that. But I feel like most of it's been mental. It's not been me physically walking away from the table. But yes, I have absolutely rage quit. In terms of watching people rage quit, that happens in any major tournament you go to. I'm trying to remember the name of the player. This would have been a War Machine and Hordes game. When, I don't know how much you guys know about War Machine and Hordes, but there's a caster
We actually do know War Machine and Hordes fairly well. That's kind of where we started. That was my first miniatures game. And Pete actually was a pundit, or not pundit, but press ganger
Cool.
while they had that program.
Yeah,
Very, very
before they burn
and-
that to the ground.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad the pundits are still functional. And yeah, everybody at Steamforge does a fantastic job with the pundit. If you want to be a pundit in your area, I can't recommend it enough. They're super great to work with. So yeah, for War Machine and Hordes, I was watching a tournament game in one of those big last chance qualifiers where they have 128 people playing the game.
Yeah.
And I was watching one of the later rounds. One of my friends was playing, and he was playing Retribution of Syra, which is the elves. They have a caster called Ron, who is a telekinesis master.
Yeah, he's got the super mittens on.
Right, exactly. And so my friend had built. It was funny to watch. I took pictures of it. I have it on my phone still. He built this yellow brick road of guys in like a perfect swirl to hit to the enemy caster, so that Ron just came forward and pulled him right along the road on like top of turn 2, pulled him right into him and murdered him. And the guy had barely moved his army. He moved his army like once, and then my friend just yanked him all the way across the table and then just murdered him with everything he had. And the guy just kind of sat there and stared at it for a little while. I saw him take his arm down, shovel all of his models just like off table on into his battle foam bag, throw the lid on the top of it, and walk out the door. Because I think he pulled him 24 inches, something along those lines, with all the little battle mittens that were all along that road. They were just yanking the guy along until he got to the back. I don't know why he didn't know, or he maybe mismeasured or something like that, because this was back before pre-measuring was happening, like good games do. And he mismeasured, and he was pulled off, and he had made it far enough in the tournament where he was in some of the quarterfinals, semifinals of this tournament, and he got assassinated top of 2 without being able to roll a single die. He didn't fight anything. He shot at nothing. He just got killed, and to watch him hand shovel an entire army of beautifully painted pewter miniatures off the table into a battle foam bag out of pure spite and anger, throw the lid on it, and just storm out of the room. Pretty awesome.
Good night.
What did your friend that did this to the guy? What did he say afterward?
Well, he kind of sat there silently as it was happening, looking very sullen. And then by the time the guy walked, he just kind of looked at me and just kind of gave him a little smirk and just like, all right, next round.
Yeah, that's why War Machine, I feel like, is really rough. And we're actually going to do an episode sometime down the line on kind of the state of the union of War Machine. But there's gotchas that just, if you don't know it and you get caught by it, the game's just over.
Yeah.
That was a rough game to start, because I had not done much miniature wargaming other than maybe Hero Clicks or Mage Knight a little bit. Hero Clicks probably more so, and again, it was only very small. I just did local stuff. I didn't do national tournaments. War Machine was the first quote-unquote professional miniature war game that I tried to get good at a tournament level, and it stressed me out.
Yeah.
It was too much stuff to keep in mind.
Well, and even if you get to the point where you're pretty good with your army, it's almost impossible unless you're putting a part-time job's worth of effort each week into learning everything. It's pretty difficult to know all the combos that could happen.
Absolutely. I had too much other stuff going on to where I could not get good enough at the game. Also, probably just wasn't smart enough for it, especially to do the math for the threat ranges. Yeah. I had some friends that were so good at that math. The knowing the difference between the 2 starting zones as being 31 inches plus advanced deployment, they would play that numbers game to a level of chess-like level that I never was able to reach. I tried, but I could never make it work for me. So, and I certainly won games, but I definitely lost way more than I won. And it was just an incredibly frustrating game to try to get good at if it's not something you really have the mind for. And it's definitely something down the road where very much similar to that guy who rage quit. I really hated the idea of I get to move once and then you just end the game. I don't get to do anything. I don't even get to roll or play. The idea of, and definitely not having alternate activations. Guild Ball is a game that has certainly turned me on to the idea that if we're playing a miniature war game and I don't have a chance to go before you go with everything you have, I'm kind of out.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of game companies are going to start seeing is I think there's a huge shift in players that are wanting that alternate or the alternating, activation games. Yeah. That's why, for my sci-fi game, I'm kind of starting to lean towards Infinity over 40K because I mean, Infinity, you get to react to what your opponent's doing. 40K, you got to wait.
Infinity is kind of a middle ground because you do get that reaction. You get that Overwatch. If you ever play XCOM, it's kind of that Overwatch reaction with everything that you have in the army. But it's still them moving their entire army, and if you don't have yourself positioned right, they can just roll you with no reaction on your part. But yeah, I do. I mean, especially if you have your guy, or if they take a guy out with a lucky shot, then all of a sudden your guy who's overwatching the field that was supposed to protect your troops, they just start running roughshod over your entire thing and winning objectives. So I do like Infinity, but for different reasons.
I actually think that as time goes by, and time will tell if I'm accurate on this, just like with video games, when they made that step to where they started using the thumbsticks as more of a primary control option, video games took a huge jump forward. And so I think we'll see the same thing with some of these next-gen game styles where it's alternating activations, the idea of these tight skirmish games that you don't need a ton of models and they can have an easy buy-in point of $50. I mean, it's ridiculous what you have to put into some of these huge games to really be able to play a full game. And most people that are just starting, they don't want to drop hundreds and hundreds of dollars to just start and don't know if they're going to like the faction.
The whole joke I had back in high school when it came to miniature wargaming, and again, I didn't really play very much, is that we always said Warhammer 40K. 40K is the price tag.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
if you want to be good at it.
Yeah, especially if you want to be good at it. And as we mentioned, we're talking about War Machine and Hordes. I'm also seeing, which is also really cool, I'm seeing a cross-section community shift from X-Wing as well. I don't know if you guys are seeing it in your area. I have an X-Wing meta that is almost now completely split down the middle, playing X-Wing and Guild Ball at the same time because they see it as being almost exactly the same game. Because of the use of widgets, because of using the sticks on the field, that they're able to pre-measure their movement and then back it off if they don't want it or something like that. It's not exactly the same, obviously, you're using like an order dial for X-Wing and things like that. But that's kind of lending to your point, the idea of having these things where you don't have to have these massive measuring, tape measures with kind of non-specific, non-exact movements, but using
what
these
do you
widgets.
mean? What do you mean about tape measures? Why'd you have to bring that up?
I'm saying you should get some goddamn widgets. That's what I'm saying.
If you're looking for goddamn widgets, can you give him a link to the page so he can order some widgets?
Hey, my tape measure is exact. I measure perfectly with that thing.
Let me get my plug out. If you're looking for goddamn widgets, go to museonminis.com. Guild Ball. We have all the Guild Ball material, everything you need for War Machine and Hordes. We got Infinity tokens on there. Any miniature game you need, we usually have you taken care of for measuring sticks. I'm saying you should get one of those instead of a tape measure. But beside the point, you are seeing that shift towards you're not looking at the Warhammer 40K giant tables anymore. You're looking at 3x3 tables, playing a quick skirmish game with maybe 5 to 6 models on the table, alternating activations, whether it be Malifaux, whether it be Guild Ball. Shadespire has some stuff like that with the order tokens. I don't know if you've looked at Shadespire much. God Tier coming out.
Both of us just looked at each other like, do you know that game?
Oh, you don't know what Shadespire is?
I know what it is, but yeah, for the listeners, real quick, coming up in the next 5 episodes here, they're going to hear me rage quit about Warhammer Fantasy because that's one of my big rage quits.
Okay.
So
I'm excited to listen to that now. I'm definitely
heads up on that one. So
see, I'm plugging episodes for stuff you guys haven't even recorded yet.
I know, it's awesome.
And it wasn't even set up, ladies and gentlemen. This is just me being intuitive as to what's amazing for these guys.
Exactly. So thanks for sharing that story because it's just it is. I know some people are like, you shouldn't celebrate that kind of thing, but it's like, you want to know what? If you don't want to be on the rage quit wire for quitting a game, don't quit your games.
Exactly. Well, that's 100% true. And I also just wanted to note my objection to the whole segment and people not being honest about it. Yeah. I just want to throw that out there.
I appreciate that. We're going to try to get that out there a little more.
Get people to say, come on, even in a casual game when you know you're losing, you can just stop the game and do something else.
Because everybody gets mad about something that happens in the game.
Yeah, like when you have to play the farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see pressure across the table and you just go, okay, good game,
Oh, this is great. Fantastic. So, looking at it, we are talking about the new guild Blacksmiths, though. So, you've had a handful of games with these guys. So, just real quick, what's your kind of initial thoughts about this guild?
My initial thoughts of the guild, and we were kind of talking about this, I believe, pre-show.
Yep.
When I started the game out, and again, I was saying like mid-season 1, my team was the Brewers. I played the Brewers. That was definitely my first team that I purchased. It was the team that I was very interested in. When I messed around with them, they were the team that played the game the way I wanted to, which was kind of get up in the mix, knock stuff down, score around them, and kill them while they're knocked down. What I've been telling people locally, and I think I've gotten a few people to at least agree with me, is the idea is that Blacksmiths seem to do the Brewers game almost better than the Brewers do. They are particularly good at getting in the mix. While they are a slow team, they have a lot of options for speed buffs. While they have relatively lower defensive stance, they have options for armoring themselves up through the roof. When they hit like Mack trucks. And when they want to score the ball, they do so in very unconventional ways that are hard for people to defend against.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I'd just say one of the big differences, though, between Brewers and Blacksmiths is just, whereas the Blacksmiths, I feel like you can split them off and work in like pairs or even trios, which is definitely can be less predictable than the way the Brewers play.
And it gives you more field position because you're spread out more so than having to be in one big scrum, which there are some teams that are designed specifically to screw that kind of team over in big, big ways.
Yeah, and we were also talking about how the Blacksmiths are designed to do something that I feel like we haven't seen yet in the game. Specifically, I feel like they're really good at breaking standoffs. Like I feel like people that like to hide the ball, or people that'll they'll drop a loose ball and just leave it there. It's like Blacksmiths have a lot of ways to break your stalemate.
Sure, having the play kill the ball on two different players, which is a brand new game rule that I feel like they came up with when they watch big time tournament play against fish players, where you have a shark team that scores 2 goals, and then that third goal is very elusive for them, and you'll have a person that'll just dump a free ball back in the back corner of the field, not on their side, just above the goal line, so they're still gaining momentum, but they're making it very difficult for them to get to. And people were winning games just by shutting out the people's ability to play the game. Yeah, to play the game in any kind of functional way. They're like, what does your team want to do? I'm going to stop them from doing that, and then we're just going to grind this out until I win or you run out of time. That's definitely, again, kind of going back to our original point, the idea of them looking at the rules and saying, we got to find a way to make something that's not fun more fun. And I feel like putting a rule out there that specifically says, hey, if you're just going to drop the ball on the field, guess what? We have plays that allow us to get that and continue playing this game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And looking at it, let's just kind of quick glance at this stuff. Who are some of the masters that you are really impressed with in this new
guild?
Boy. I know Dan is really trying to make Anvil work, but he ranks pretty low for me.
He is. I mean, he's a cool master, and if I have him on the team, I certainly make him do things. However, I do feel like there are, and if you go in to listen to our pitch episode, I'll go through all of the masters and what I think about them. I do feel like Anvil's quite a bit of a liability. A lot of times because of the 1-inch reach. He is defense 2. He doesn't have sturdy, so he's fairly easy to knock down. He does have tough hide and 19 boxes and 3 armor. But there's a number of ways in the game to overpower that if you need to. I mean, Filet is TAC 8 for Christ's sakes. I think she can score some hits if she needs to. And she'll be tooled up and you'll be bleeding, and guess what? That tough hide doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, he has a lot of cool things going for him just being on the field, but he's definitely not a captain.
So who would you say is the one captain that you're like, I really like this guy or girl?
My number one on my list from that episode was Ferrite.
Okay, and I think that's pretty standard for what people are thinking right now.
Yeah, and we actually did a long shank search, and Ferrite was the number 1 captain on all of the top Blacksmith players in the world.
So what do you like about her?
Ferrite, very much in what I was kind of expecting to, or explaining before about the Brewers thing, is that she is such an unbelievable toolbox that 5 influence on her can mean almost anything in this game. You can, if she wants to run in and debuff the crap out of an entire team while dodging through them all, she can do that. The acrobatic to get around unpredictable movement or counter charges, or to engage people that are just outside of her range. She has a 4-8 kick. Disarm is I think if people aren't talking about this as being one of the most powerful character plays in the game, I don't know what's wrong with them. The ability to drop 2 tack off somebody is ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's momentous, and it's on 1.
Yeah.
So if you screw your attack up and you whiff, it's like, oh, I can just disarm them so they can't counterattack me.
That happens all the time. People have dice issues in this game. If you're going like, oh, this is a sure thing, this guy's a defense 3-1, and you roll those 2s and 1s and 2 3s and 1 comes up, you're like, well, what the hell am I going to do with this 1 attack? Oh, and they're about to counterattack me? Guess what? He's disarmed. Come back at me with your tack 2 flint. Oh, wait, I have 2 armor, so nothing happens?
So
cool.
nothing.
And then you keep going.
Yeah, and so I did want to ask this because
Yeah.
I've played him a few times, and I think I'm having trouble with, I shouldn't say trouble, but I feel like I'm wasting her legendary a lot of times.
Sure.
Because I feel like I'm not using it as effectively as I can. So how have you used it in the games you've been looking at?
Well, when I started with her, I was trying to break her using the first box, which was just all the starter people, which was, Ferrite, Furnace, and Anvil, and then Cinder, Sledge, and Iron. Because those were the only 6 that we had at the time. And when I put that box, I bought it at Gen Con, sat down in my local game shop, because I didn't get a chance to play them because I was running demos for Steamforge when I was there that weekend. I didn't get a chance to play them. But I took them home to my game shop. I laid out a mat. I put them all out on the table, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to exactly measure this to make this work. So my plan was to put everybody in a line with Iron a little bit back behind the line, like right along the bases. So the first thing is for him to go impetus and then sprint right along the back line and push everybody 2 inches forward.
Okay.
And then kind of do like, if you watch some American football or gridiron, however the Brits want to call it, you have a guy, you have a guy in motion running around behind the back before he goes on a run play. So he would go in motion behind and then run up next to Ferrite with impetus on him, and having pushed everybody 2 inches forward. Then you have Anvil go. He does while the iron's hot. Everybody sprints 2 inches forward. This might be, and this is also based on the idea of Ferrite maybe kicking off. Yeah. So that she's a little bit farther ahead of it, but everybody is moving forward. And then before they even get a chance to go, other than Anvil and maybe Iron, she would pop the feet, give 4 players plus herself the +2/+2 move bonus. And by the end of that first round of combat, half of your team or most of your team is on the other side of the midfield.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy because, they want to score, so that puts them in a really strong position to go get the ball.
Yeah, so a Ferrite moving her almost full distance forward, but not all the way forward because you want to keep most of your team in that 6-inch bubble of her aura. If you move her far enough forward, when you kick the ball to them, if she hyperspeeds herself and then goes flying into their team, there's a chance, because she does have a momentous tackle on 2, that she could tackle the ball off somebody and shoot the goal immediately. And then if you have knee slider, you can just dodge her back out.
Yeah.
And then have the rest of your team swarm her and protect her.
Okay, so how about out of that new box? Which captain do you like the most out of that new box?
Out of the new box, I was originally, if I had to choose, when I first bought the box at SteamCon UK, where I was playing the Rookie League, where Ferrite was the rookie, and I got to play her as an apprentice. You could play her as an apprentice or as a master, and I played her as an apprentice. So I had to sub somebody out. So I basically played that entire second box by subbing out Alloy, who was their goal scorer in that team, with Ferrite, and I was running Ferris as the captain.
Okay.
And so, but she ended up making number 3 on my captain list because I had some conversations with the gentleman named Alex Vian up in Minnesota. We have a good relationship with our Minnesota meta as well. They have a whole group of guys up there. None of them are doing a podcast or anything like that. We talk about them. We talk with them a lot on Facebook groups. And the one guy's like, Lance, he's like, you're playing Blacksmiths, right? Yes. You need to try Burnish. I'm like, really? He's like, yes. Get Burnish to be a captain. I'm like, why? And he's like, what does tooled up 2 flame belches feel like to you? I'm like, amazing. And then if you pop in his legendary, he gets to make another one for free, so that would be technically 3 flame belches. So you're looking at a tooled up 4 damage on each belch, so you're looking at 12 damage, and if they don't clear it, it's 13, and you can do that in round 1.
Wow.
So I did that against the Thresher game I was talking about earlier, and I was able to put a big amount of damage on Tater and Thresher, making them very easy pickings to try to kill the next round, especially when Thresher came rocketing into my team.
Yeah, and I think also something that's worth saying about Burnish is just, I think reinforced plating is going to change the game.
That is something that there are a number of teams. There's going to be a lot of situations where that is going to break your opponent's like entire train of what they were trying to do as they try to target you with something, whether they be alchemists, because it isn't target, it's just hit.
Yeah.
So you can ignore being burned, you can ignore being poisoned, you can ignore a number of things that happen in this game. With character mow down from Tater,
oh god,
you can ignore mow down. I mean, it's insane. The problem I have with him, and the reason why I don't rank him higher, is that it becomes an order of activation issue with him, where you have to figure out where in the turn you're going to have him go, because you need to build momentum before you can use the reinforced plating.
Yeah.
And how much do you want to use? And are your people going to be within the 6-inch aura to take advantage of it? Because you don't want to waste that opportunity if you don't have to. So it's almost your opponent's playing into it and not knowing what he's capable of, and then getting rogued by it, versus someone who may know what he does and may try to target something else, or to try to hit you before you get a chance to generate momentum.
Yeah, I feel like reduction is also another one that can. It seems small, but I feel like, if there's a bunch of bleed out there playing butchers, or if there's a bunch of poison or snared, you can just be like, oh, we're just on fire now.
Yeah, alchemists, hunters, but butchers with fillet especially.
You mean
anything that puts out? Yeah, fill it. Way to throw off my train. I appreciate it. Anybody that plays with even brewers, like knockdown heavy brewers with stave, you could make use of that 0 cost reduction, especially with him and Furnace both ignoring the first burning condition. You're able to clear conditions and play the game you want to play versus what they do. You do have to keep in mind the idea that you're going to be -2 speed, so you got to have a little bit of momentum to try to clear that before you move the character.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to clear 3 conditions and putting 1 more on is a powerful thing to do for 0 influence. So for that reason, of that second box, I feel like Burnish has the most amount of impact, the most amount of toolbox, and can really get more stuff done than you think he can. Plus, he has Kill the Ball, which is always fun.
That's helpful.
So it's kind of a close call between him and Ferris. I think he's more impactful.
Yeah, Burnish, the thing that really stands out about him is that whether you play him as a captain or as just a master, he's able to do those things like reduction, the reinforced plating, and obviously when you can spread that reinforced plating out to others, that's wonderful. But I see him as a model that you activate a little bit later in a turn, so he's going to be tough to get to. Yes. And him being able to just stand everybody up and do things like that, it's going to be incredibly frustrating.
Yes, and there's definitely a number of team builds with this team that you want somebody who's going to be able to put out area effect burning for other characters to take advantage of.
He's an auto include for anybody that is going to be running like a control team against you.
Oh yeah, you put him in your 10 for sure.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and we can get into that conversation a little later, because that's how we ended our last pitch episode. Was you have 12 great, really good players, none of which are auto drops. I mean, there's no Vet Grave or Vile Swarm in this list. This is all USDA Prime great characters.
Well,
who are your 2 drops? Who are your 2 drops? And my 2 drops were Anvil and Sledge, because if I don't have Anvil in there, I'm not bringing Sledge. So, and I'm like, just because I think he's the weakest. He's amazing. He does a lot of cool stuff, but I think he's the weakest player on that team, and therefore I dropped the apprentice with him.
So him being your weak apprentice, who is the MVP apprentice? Who's the one where you're like, this guy's awesome, or this girl's awesome?
I would also argue Bolt.
Okay, so what do you like about Bolt?
Well, I mean, in very much the same way that Sledge is your auto include when you play Anvil, I think Bolt is your auto include when you play Ferris, because of her quick foot options, as well as his free. I give any one of my models 2 damage and then knock somebody down 4 inches away from them. She tutelages Shoomerang for him.
Yep.
Or even I'm open, which is also not a bad move when he's already auto jogging at the beginning of a turn. So he can auto jog closer to the person with the ball, free I'm open, and then sprint and then make a shot. So for a limited amount of influence, that guy can affect the field and is upwards of one of the most mobile characters in the game at this point, and definitely on the team. But I mean, let's not argue with the fact that Alloy is also a fantastic player because of the speed bonus, his 3.8 kick. He's a decent defense stat, which is kind of hard to come by with a Blacksmith. Nobody higher than a 4. And some characters that have 3 that don't make any sense, other than maybe they're heavily armored down a little bit. But no, I mean, Alloy's versatility with... I mean, Back to the Shadows is not going to happen that often. You're probably not going to do too much damage with him, though it is certainly an option. The fact that all of the apprentices in this, while as many times I would love to say I would want the masters to get a lot of work done when it comes to damage, they are definitely support models when it comes to the apprentices blowing up the damage scale.
Yeah.
And if you properly support somebody like Bolt or Cast, Alloy, hell, even Iron has a momentous 7 at the top of his book. You can certainly get a lot of damage work done on weakened models that are a little bit hurt, and they can still get the work done when it comes to tooled up or something like that.
I just see Alloy as so influence efficient, especially from a scoring perspective.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
The fact that you have this, you can stretch out to 19 inches.
Sure.
For a 19-inch score and a 4 kick for just 2 influence.
Yes.
That's so dangerous.
Yeah,
or
or
you can flip it
melees.
up. You can go melee and, or anatomical precision, whatever ability you want. He's just so adaptable.
Absolutely. Throwing dirty knives around. He has everybody's favorite striker ability, the momentous tackle double dodge.
Yeah.
Having that on 5 on attack 5 model is just like, well, if he has 2-inch reach and he charges into a model that's not MASH, let me remind you, but if they have unpredictable movement, he can throw the 2-inch reach that he needs to on himself, or he can have Hearth throw it out to him, and he can go charging in, get that tackle double dodge and bounce out and shoot those goals for days. Yeah, that's just huge.
So here's the problem I have with the Blacksmiths, though, is that I feel like it's a trap that they put all these huge damage numbers on them. Because I feel like if you try to just play the damage game with these Blacksmiths, I feel like you're not going to win a ton of games.
It shouldn't be your goal unless that's really what you're trying to do. A lot of people will make the argument that they think Blacksmiths are a 3-0 team. They're 3 goals and no kills. I would argue they're best when they have at least a 2-2 option. You got to have... because there are some teams that are particularly good at keeping the ball away from other teams, not necessarily by dropping the loose ball because they know that you have Cinder on your team or you have Burnish on it to maybe bring it back into play, but they will be able to manipulate it so that you have to try to kill something.
Yeah.
And the fact that the team has options, so that if the game plays out, you're going like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to get to that ball and I can't get to that access to that. What do I do on this turn? You can, when you're out, you're sitting there with your big pool of 12 influence plus maybe a couple more if you've got a couple goal scorers. The idea that you can fully load a couple of apprentices and try to kill something, you can put the pressure on them in a way that other teams, like if you're playing Fish and you're playing score centric and the other team plays the game to say you can't score this 3rd goal, how are you going to win? This team has options.
They do. Yeah, I definitely think 2-2 is realistic, but I think if you're trying to go for 4, you're probably not going to do so hot with them.
Yes, I would agree. They don't survive the counter hit. While as though they are heavily armored, they are low defense. And as I kind of mentioned before with Anvil, people have ways of bringing down your characters. It will be hard, but they will be able to pull it off. And if you try to get into a scrum with a team that's particularly good at dealing with the scrum, you're going to have a bad time. Yeah, you really got to keep playing the ball and then going after maybe individual characters on a wing or something like that are kind of unsupported. Try to attack their weak link. If you're playing, if you're playing into a Brewer player, you're trying to take out, original Spigot. If you're taking on, you're trying to hit a low defense, low armor model and kill them as fast as you can to try to score some points.
And the scenario I have with this is I was playing during Christmas break. I was playing a guy who was playing the original box, so the first box, and I was playing Hunters, and I had Ulfer on the flank, and he had full boxes. I was okay. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I already activated him. He was just over there, full boxes, but I was knocked down. And all of a sudden, Ferrite calls over Iron.
Yep.
Iron charges into me, and this dude hits with everything, and he deleted Ulfer in 2 swings.
Yeah, it can happen. I was kind of impressed. What did I'm trying to remember. I was playing that first game that I was playing with that second box, and I had Ferris as the captain. And what I managed to do is I managed to get Bolt kicked off because I didn't win the roll, but I kicked off with Bolt, so Bolt was a little bit forward. He was 4 inches forward. I threw Quick Foot on him. I threw Use This. I gave him Instruction. I tooled him up. What else? And so he was my last activation for the round, and he had a ball carrier come
Holy
forward.
Shit, he has a 2-on-3.
Yeah, I mean, and a 4, and so he's TAC 5. So he had a Brisket. He had original Brisket come forward, and no, it wasn't original Brisket. It was somebody with defense 4. I can't remember who it was. It was
Probably Shank or somebody.
Maybe Shank. No, it was a Mason's player, so it would have been Flint.
Okay.
So it would have been Flint. So I charged in and tooled up with Instruct him. I rolled pretty bonkers high, and then did that. I ended up wrapping the playbook twice,
Jesus.
and then bought a couple more attacks on him and just deleted him in round 1. And the ball went scattering. He's just like, I didn't know he could do that, and I'm like, I didn't know that either. It was like, I mean, I telegraphed the fact that he was super souped up and was going to be amazing, but yeah, he was able to get deep into his lines and just murder a player out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, that's a good apprentice to tool up. I'll keep that in mind for later. I think Alloy would be in the exact same boat. Like if I had Alloy a little bit forward and he was kicking that ball off, to throw him in the middle of that mix with, especially if it's like a high armored model, you'd give him anatomical precision, or you put the 2-inch reach on him, and all of a sudden he would, with Instruction, would hit like a monster truck, I would think, as well too. Maybe not Sledge or Iron level, but he could certainly get the job done. So the fact that you have that option in the mid game where the goal doesn't seem as likely, or you're waiting for maybe your opponent to try to make a score as you pressure them, like you have a person that may go, oh god, I need to score a goal right now, while you're slowly playing the game. You're like, okay, I'm just gonna start putting damage on somebody so that when the time comes, I can just delete them, score that 2 points, and then maybe run up and score a goal and get a 6-point activation, which is kind of everybody's, you're trying to make that happen as often as you possibly can. That's how you win games, is the ability to like wombo combo a cool activation like that.
Yeah, and maybe that is something you want to focus on, is when you want to try to delete somebody, just kind of soup up one of your dudes and just kind of, take them in and try to get that takeout.
It's a psychological game too, where if they look down at their cards and they see damage spread across all their players and it's looking bad, they will start making rash decisions.
Oh yeah.
You kind of want to make them go, at any point he can kill any one of these models, and I have this guy with the ball that in any other respect they might wait until later in the round to score that goal so that you can't counter. They might do it sooner because they're worried about something bad happening.
So minus Anvil, we'll leave Anvil out of this. What's
just throw him in the trash. You don't even need the model.
Because I feel like he does have a place, but he's very, he's got a place, but it's just not as impressive as some of the other blacksmiths. But besides Anvil, who's a model in this guild that you have found to be a little underwhelming? Like maybe they just don't do as much as you want them to do when you play.
Looking through my list, and I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, so if you guys are ready to get
we're ready.
Your social media blown up here, although I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of shit for it. And if having played the first box a whole bunch, so I'm going to focus on the first box just because I have the most amount of experience with it. I've had a lot of trouble getting Iron to work for me, and I think it's because I'm not playing him right. I know there are people out there that can make him play well. What it ends up being, for people that maybe don't know specifically, at the beginning of the game with any blacksmith team, no matter what combination you build, you always have 12 influence.
Yep.
And for a lot of the builds that I have, by the time I'm allocating out everything that I have to do all the stuff I want to do, Iron is often left with nothing. And it's only on rare occasions when I'm maybe like down a player, or the player's running in off a sideline and he's super slow, so I have nothing else to do with that influence other than giving him one so he can sprint a little bit farther. Then I might give some stuff to Iron, or other than, as I mentioned before, that whole first turn activation where he kind of sprints along and gives everybody a little push. I really don't have him do much for me. The 1-inch melee is cumbersome, although of course you can fix that with Hearth in this. I understand in this faction that can be solved. 1-inch melee to me, I always, unless the player is ballbuster like Ferrite and can somehow access that extra distance that she needs, I always find 1-inch melee characters to be a little bit harder to pull off the things I want to do, because there's so many things in the game that just they shut down my ability to react. I mean, if people walk up with a 2-inch melee model and there's like, okay, I'm going to swing on this guy, and I'll be like, okay, I have 7 momentum, but I can't do anything, so go ahead and have your turn as I do nothing. The idea of being able to have at least a 2-inch reach model to force them to do the knockdown, to force them to, pick a play that they don't want to do on a charge or something like that. 1-inch reach models bother me in a lot of ways. And so if you look at this guy, if you don't give him a lot of influence, all he's doing is walking around 4 inches and pushing people 2.
Yeah.
Yes, you can speed him up. Yes, he has Momentous 7 at the top of his playbook. He is in my tournament 10, as I mentioned, because I'm dropping the Anvil thing, and I do need more practice with him to get him to work. But close control is great. Tough hide is great. He is defense 2-2. If you get him near a Sentinel captain, he goes to 2-3, which is Anvil stats, which are fine. Still only 14 hit boxes. He's not sturdy, so real easy to knock down.
Yeah.
The heroic play... I'm hoping your listeners are looking at the cards as we're talking about these things, because I'm really not going into detail as to what these things actually are. But his heroic play is at the very best circumstantial, unless you are playing to it specifically. Like if you're giving him impetus every round, if you're giving him 2 influence every round of the game, you're impetus and sprinting, impetus and sprinting, and impetus and sprinting to get him within 2 inches of a goalpost, so that at some point in the game you can pass the ball to him and he can use a momentum to kick. He just 1 momentum is a kick and the goal score, and he's going to be kicking at two dice, needing 3s. Of course, you can bonus time it if you want to, but that seems like a waste of momentum that you're getting for free. But maybe it's cost effective at that point. And then he just gets and it's my target number. Oh, so it's 2s. I apologize. So it is 2s. It's a very likely goal, but that seems really like a waste of a 1/6 of your influence pool every round just to get this guy into a position to do that.
And I feel like he's kind of out of position at that point.
Yeah, he'll get killed, especially against a melee.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to see that guy coming and he's like, okay, let's murder that thing.
And the other thing is, it's that heroic play is only in activation.
Yeah.
And so we actually played this wrong at the beginning with our Blacksmiths player, and he just would put it up
He loves snapshots.
Yeah, try and hit like a snapshot with
Everybody loves snapshots.
Yeah,
it's the best thing in the game.
Honestly, if they just changed that rule and they made it to where you could do it out of activation, I think it would actually create a lot more fun for players, because players would go for that snapshot.
Yeah.
And they would try and get him down there in 2 inches and try it, because a snapshot, if you just need 2s and you're within 2 inches of the goal there, and even though he's just rolling 2 die, that's pretty reasonable. You can do that. And so I wish that they would change that heroic play, just the wording. If they just took that inactivation word out and just made it for the remainder of the turn.
So here's my underwhelming model. So the model that I feel like she should do more, but I hate her guts because she doesn't, is Cinder.
Oh, okay.
Because every time I go for her freaking hot shot, every time, I swear to God, I'm like, I'm going to go for the hot shot. And I try to tackle the ball. I never get those 3 hits. Every time.
May I recommend playing her with Hearth and throwing instruction before you do?
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely help.
Then you need 1 hit to tackle a ball from 6 inches away.
So like a lot of people, though, I
Just
think
saying.
We've been playing with that first box, though.
I have, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you add Hearth in there, that definitely makes it, pretty much like it's going to happen almost.
I'm not saying from a first box isolated perspective from the idea of the whole team. I don't think I will be playing Cinder without Hearth on the team.
Yeah, and I definitely see how that would work, but I'm speaking just from like that first box where it's just frustrating.
Yes.
But without it being set up this way, if that tackle was down the list and she only needed 2 or she only
It'd be
needed
overpowered.
1, it would be OP as all hell.
For sure.
Oh, yes. And if it was momentous, too, that would also be a thing.
Yeah.
For her, I like for me, for when I played her in that first box, just an isolated into the first box, what I would roll with her, I would put at least 1 on her every time to do that shot. And a lot of the time was just to see whether or not it was more for a momentum generation. It would always be near the end of my activation, just to try to get me maybe closer in the momentum race, or to put me a little farther ahead in the momentum race to go in first next round. And if I rolled low, then I would do the dodge. And if I rolled higher, I would do the damage and set them on fire. So it became a little bit more of a control option, or just a small momentum gain as she slowly moves up the field into a position to where she can maybe do something a little better later. I would take into the effect of the Searing Strike. Obviously the hot shot's a big thing. The kill the ball. Her decoy isn't bad, though I am particularly sad with the fact that she's only defense 3 with 1 armor. When you look at a guy like Sledge and you look at her, I'm like, why is she less armor? Why is she less defense than this guy? This doesn't make any sense to me. So, but she is
the unpredictable movement.
Yeah. You would want that to feel like you at least start at a 4 and then give her decoy so that she can hold the ball, put herself to defense 6, and make it at least a little bit harder for people to strip it off of her. But 5 is fine, I guess. But I don't find her underwhelming just because of her toolbox of material, as I kind of mentioned, the idea of stripping the ball. I have a lot of players around here, especially like the farmers guys with the low defense, other than Bushel, but they don't ever play Bushel. They always sub in Tater instead of her. I'm like, okay, so everybody in your team is defense 3 or lower? Sweet. Cinder's going to go. Who do you have the ball on right now? Is it not the chicken? Cool. Tackle. Fine.
Great.
And then there's like, how do I keep the ball away from this team? And I was like,
That's one of the weaknesses of the farmers, I feel like, is it can be hard to hide the ball.
Very. Other than, I mean, they have the defense 5 models of the chicken and Jackstraw.
Yeah.
But they certainly have ways, and then he just teleports away if you can't get the ball away from him, or he'll strip it from you with a 2-inch reach and then dodge out with his teleportation crap around the harvest markers. But yeah, you got to kind of try to play into what they're going to try to do. And yeah, farmers are a team you just have to play ball against, because killing them is almost a fool's errand with their recursion heals and all that crap. Like, you have the Harrow heal aura, plus they have ways of like eating the harvest markers to heal hit points. It's just like, okay, I can't kill these guys. I've tried to kill Tater so many times. I've never been able to remove Tater from the table. I've been able to put him down to like 1 or 2 hit points, and then they're like, okay, next round he's going to do these 5 things and he's back to 14 health. I'm like, fuck you. Like, why did I even bother pouring influence into trying to kill this guy?
I fucking hate those farmers.
I do too.
We all know, Chris.
We all hate the farmers.
Well, he's brought it up.
So just before we move on, we actually are going to a tournament this weekend. It's up in Greenville called Cold Snap, and it's a pretty big tournament. We got 20 people signed up for it.
I thought we have more than... Oh, no, 20, yeah.
Yeah, it's 20 right now. We might have more.
Jakes, but yeah.
So I am bringing the farmers up there.
Okay.
And we're definitely going to do some battle reports and see how they fare.
I will love to listen to that.
And there's 4 blacksmith players, so we'll have some info on that too.
Hey,
we'll have some crazy blacksmiths versus farmer matchups.
Yeah.
It's going to be almost all farmers and blacksmiths, because everybody wants to play the new hotness.
Oh, yeah. One model we actually, and I don't know, you might have a good answer to this, Lance, is that I have not heard hardly anything about Cast. Like, I have not heard any podcasts really talking about her. Sure. What do you think about her?
She would be an auto include, and I think she's going to be an auto include in a lot of my teams, because I love her. I think she's fantastic. And she plays into what we like to call the Fire Team 7 is what we're calling them.
Okay.
It's Cinder, it's Furnace and Cinder, Burnish and Cast, and then I think it's going to be Hearth and I got to remember what the other. There's another.
Alloy.
Maybe I think it's Alloy. I think that's my team. That is my 2-2 team, because and then Burnish is the captain to do that big flame burst as I mentioned. Put as much fire out on the table as possible with him. With Furnace, when he occasionally gets in and makes swings to melt the armor off of people, he'll set them on fire. Cinder will shoot with the hot shot and set them on fire. And then you tool up Cast, and Cast goes flying in. That is some of the biggest damage you will see out of this team, other than a tooled up Sledge with 15 pile drivers, because she has that momentous 6-on-6. So that with tooled up goes to an 8, because she gets the +1 for people that are on fire, and she gets +1 for the tool up. So she can delete models, and she's TAC 5, and then usually she's like ganged up with other people and things like that. On top of the fact that if she runs in kind of in the middle of the pitch and hits some low defense models, she can throw out she can do the shield throw to make people drop the ball, which will get around unpredictable movement. It'll get around close control. It'll get around a whole bunch of stuff, and then also like shield glare to throw out additional debuffs on the team. I think she's incredibly versatile. and I would play her almost the way that people play Sledge, because you throw some instruction on her, you tool her up, and you send her into somebody who's on fire, and with full 4 influence, and she's going to get some work done. I think she's kind of the under the radar player for them. It's not one that a lot of people are talking about, but when she's on a team and you're on fire, she's dangerous.
Yeah, I like that list you're talking about with Burnish and Cast. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of playing Esters and Stoker, where it's
yes, 100%.
It's all about setting up that fire and then tooling up Stoker and then sending him in. And a lot of people don't play Stoker, but he will ruin your day.
Stoker was one of those players that kind of started to get a little more play after Esters came out, and Esters is my captain of choice for Brewers. I got a little tired of Tapper, and I felt like Esters brought a little bit more versatility to the team.
Respect.
On top of being able to throw out the speed boost, the defense bonus, the attack bonuses, her games were always just more fun. On top of the fact that she didn't have to have a ton of influence to get work done.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to play the Tapper game of, well, he's fully loaded because he has to carry the entire team's ability to do stuff. She was kind of like, well, I'll be fine with this too while I fully load the rest of my team and get a ton of work done. A lot of mine for her were always tooling up in that first round where she would move forward under like times called or something like that, get a little farther forward, and then just double AoE bomb like their starting line. Whoever has the ball over there, it's like, well, let's get them in rough ground and set them on fire and do 4 or 8 total damage to them over before they even get a chance to go. I really liked that kind of play. So yes, 100% the idea of setting up that fire shot and then letting Stoker come charging in and get that wrap damage on his tooled up. On top of the fact that if Stoker had 2-inch reach, he would be in every Brewer team because of that momentous double push on 1. I mean, let's talk about how amazing that is by itself. That is anybody coming into you with 1-inch reach on a counter attack. They just go crazy for that. And on top of the fact, if he gets tough skinned to go up to 3 armor, he can get the defensiveness to go to a 4-3. People are just like, I don't even want to attack this guy. Screw him. I do love Stoker. So yes, for all the dreams I wanted to live with that guy, this team can actually pull that off with the massive amount of fire they can put out on the table.
And
sure.
I wanted your thoughts on this. And we try, this is going to seem like common sense, but we try to cater this toward newer players as well.
I don't mind that at all.
Yeah,
How to do that.
One thing that I've noticed specifically with this team is when you're picking plot cards, if you get good marker, you need to take that. Having that extra 2-inch extension on like a ton of their character plays, especially how dependent they are on those character plays, you need to take that extra 2 inches if you can get it.
I would say, that would be true of almost anybody that has any kind of range shot or ranged ability. I feel like a lot of their stuff is somewhat personalized or within an aura as well. I'm looking through their cards real quick. There's a lot of P's and S's here.
Yeah, that's true.
The ones and then while the iron's hot is in a pulse. Kill the ball, I guess, at 8 inches would be fine. The only limitation to that, if that card was just plus 2 inches, that's fine. But the fact that you have to do it before you move makes it a little bit more circumstantial, like it's before you advance. So I'm trying to think of.
That's why I would take it, is because then you're able to stretch out a lot of those attacks before you have to move.
I mean, we're not going to have to worry about those plot cards for too much longer anyways.
Well, that's a good point,
true.
too.
That's true. It's only until April or so when we get the new card list out.
I think they were saying sometime around Adepticon maybe they're looking at changing the plot cards out.
But until then, take good marker. Don't take Sikkim. That would.
Yeah, do not take Sikkim.
I draw Sikkim every time I play Blacksmiths.
Dude, you're not lying. I've played 3 times with Blacksmiths, and every time Sikkim shows up.
I take him to a tournament. I take him for casual games. I draw Sikkim every goddamn time, and I'm just like, I throw it on the table face up to my opponent. I'm just like, fuck you, and I just keep going, through the cards. And they laugh every time because they're just like, you drew it again. I'm like, every time. I'm always down 1 plot card.
So this is kind of a funny story. When Pete was first getting into this game, we would play, and we didn't have the Season 3 stuff yet, right? It was right during that transition period. And so we would play with the Season 2 plot cards, but the rules had changed, and you could bring your mascots back into the game. And so Pete would draw that husbandry card all the time.
God.
And he'd be like, husbandry? What the fuck is this?
Just get it out of the deck. It doesn't matter anymore.
Every time. I think he's stacking the deck on.
I think that this new system of initiative and plot cards and things like that
Yeah.
will really, really help those types of issues with transitions from season 3 to 4, etc.
It's going to change the game in a very, very vital way. The idea of dice rolling your initiatives kind of going out the window is interesting. I've been certainly in tournaments and in casual play, there's been games where I've been up for momentum and I've rolled the 1 while my opponent rolls the 6.
Don't even start talking about that because I'm the president of that club.
Sure.
I say Chris has rage quitted
there are
games
many
because of the
members.
initiative rolls.
It's a nationwide epidemic. You are not alone. We have members jackets.
There's a club, yeah.
So there's a club. So the idea of having these new initiative cards coming out to where it's going to take the dice roll off the table to where you can play these cards to adjust your initiative as to whether you want to go first by giving yourself a weaker power for the round versus playing. It plays a whole new meta game within the game itself as to trying to figure out when you want to go and being able to control that. I think that's going to influence the game in a big, big way. It's going to change the strategy of the game.
I agree.
For the better, for sure. You're going to have those games where you're in control and you're going to be able to maintain control by taking a little bit of a penalty. And at the same time, if I'm on the other side of that, if I can play a low, card to give myself at least a bit of a boost, what we like to call the Mario Kart Blue Shell effect, that you can maybe try to bring yourself back into the game a little bit. I don't hate that idea either.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I have lost so many up by 4 momentum rolls. I hate dice, and
I
it's
roll
amazing.
pretty solid on it. I'm okay with it.
It's amazing because we have a podcast that's all about miniatures games, and they're all dice games. But
I was gonna say
hate dice.
Like Guild Ball, and you hate dice.
Yeah. Because
I just like to take the probability out. I'm like, well, then you're not playing a dice game.
Yeah. I feel like.
That's
Like
chess.
I think I'm a pretty I think I'm a pretty good guy, but I almost feel like dice are in a karma way punishing any bad thing I've ever done in my life. Like,
Sure.
like
You're not alone in that either.
they are hunting me down.
I think you stole something from Hawaii, and this is your punishment.
Maybe I have a curse. Yeah, I didn't. I would never steal from the goddess Pele.
Let's Brady Bunch the shit out of this.
Well, Chris is from Hawaii originally, so.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was telling you about some of the myths and things and one of them is if you steal the lava rocks or the black sand off the beaches, that the volcano goddess Pele will curse you when you leave the islands, and there are all sorts of stories about tourists.
Send the rocks back, Chris. You might win some initiative rolls.
I would never steal from her. I understand.
I'm from Wisconsin. All of our myths are about giant lumberjacks and big blue oxes.
There you go. So, Lance, last thing I really want to talk to you about is the Muse crew there. You guys run a pretty cool event in the spring, is that right?
Yeah. We have MuseCon. MuseonCon is what we're calling it. MuseonCon is the 18th of May through the 20th. It's here in Des Moines, Iowa. Muson Minis is kind of the main sponsor, but we have a lot of other companies that sponsor our events. Last year, Steamforged showed up. We had Steamforged people here running events. They were running demos. They were running. We had one of the qualifiers for last year's U.S. Championships was with us, and we are running it again this year. And Steamforged will again be involved. I've been in contact with them a little bit. We haven't worked out the specifics. And the problem is we're talking about trying to put out an event schedule. However, we don't know what's going to happen with Adepticon with the tournament organizing changes. So it's going to be a month before that we're going to know what that is. And then we'll try to make the switch really fast so that we know what's going on with it. But we are going to have full SteamCon events. We are going to try to do the pre-registration to get to be under the new qualification rules so that we can be a qualifier for everything. And we had plenty of people last year that we'd be able to go over the I forget how many was it, 20, 30 people? What's the
it's
cutoff?
30.
30 people. Yeah, we should be able to get to 30, no problem.
How many people did you have last year playing Guild Ball?
Had to be in the 40 to 50 range. And I ended up I ran a bunch of demos we had X-Wing play, because this is a convention for a lot of different miniatures games. If you want to play Infinity, we got it. We got Batman, we got X-Wing, we have War Machine and Hordes. We have some Blood Bowl tournaments. It's pretty much any and all miniatures and board gaming is all being covered by our convention. We got it all, and we have local comic shops that set up booths, and then Steamforge is going to be there. Muson Minis will be there with tokens and stuff, and we'll run that event. And that's again here in Des Moines, Iowa, on May 18th through the 20th. We'll certainly be a qualifier with that stuff, and we'll make more announcements as it comes up. But like Muson Minis on Facebook, and you will get all of the social media information, or just visit our website. We'll go through everything there.
Is there anything else you want to plug, or anything else you want to say, Lance, before we let you go?
Just Muson Minis for all the store stuff. We have a ton of Guild Ball token sets. We're the official U.S. distributor for Steamforge for token sets for all of their games. And then, of course, Frozen Forge is their UK sponsors, so shout out to those guys as well. I've met a few of them; they're very nice. Yeah, just go buy get rid of your tape measure, and go buy some goddamn widgets. That's all I'm saying.
And maybe one day I'll win some widgets.
I think that's what he's hoping. I think he's just being cheap and just wants to win them.
Come to Des Moines, Iowa, in May. And get some widgets, or maybe win some. We have a whole prize table. You can grab stuff off the prize table, and they would all be available there. So
there you go. And I think the last thing is make sure that you listen to the pitch.
Oh man, Dan would yell at me if I didn't plug the pitch. So I guess we shouldn't do that.
I mean, who doesn't want to hear from Last Chance Lance every week?
I thought it was No Chance Lance.
No Chance.
It's
Lance?
No Chance. I don't want to correct.
Last
I
Chance.
feel like I have.
Well, I mean, they both have L's, so that's why.
Which one is? I kind of like Last Chance better.
This is your last chance.
Because of the alliteration with the LL. I don't hate that idea.
Maybe we'll have to pitch that to Dan.
I don't know.
We might have to. But yes, please listen to the pitch. We're putting out, a good amount of content fairly regularly. We're getting some iTunes reviews now, so we should be showing up in iTunes. If you search for Guild Ball, you should be able to find the pitch there. Otherwise, you can find it on MidwestWargaming.com is Dan's website. We have the podcast posted there. We're also on Podbean. You should be able to find the pitch there and listen to those episodes, and it sounds very similar to this.
All right. Well, Lance, thanks for talking with us, and
absolute pleasure.
We'll hear you around the bend here.
Yes, I would love to meet you guys and come play sometime. I need to get out to the East Coast and get into some events. Are you guys going to like Bourbon Trail Open or anything like that? Do you play any of those?
Yeah, we're looking at it. We're definitely in the spring fling. We signed up for that.
Okay.
And then
that's sold out already, didn't it?
It is. And Bourbon Trail Open hasn't put any info out, so we don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, the big one we're targeting is that Old Jake's How's That tournament.
Okay.
It seems like it's going to have many of the same cool features of the Bourbon Trail Open, like they're hosting it in a brewery and those types of things. But
so cool.
It's just been organized sooner. Like they haven't done a lot as far as organization stuff for that Bourbon Trail Open.
I'm going to try to get out at least to Bourbon Trail Open. I think that's probably the closest event I'll be to you. And are you guys going to Captain Con or anything like that?
I don't know.
A little too far north.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We haven't finalized our schedule as far as what Pete and I will be going to, but we do try and get other guys from South Carolina to go. We're getting there are 8 guys from South Carolina that are going to that spring fling. Obviously, the Old Jake's tournament they're hosting there, but that Old Jake's tournament they've already got 30 guys registered there, so
it's like 33 now.
Yeah, so we know that it's going to be a qualifying tournament, and so that's what I kind of wonder about that Bourbon Trail Open is if people are planning on going to this Old Jake's event and the
Bourbon
spring
Trail.
fling, how many people are going to take the third trip to go to
That's a
Bourbon
good
Trail
question.
Open?
I'll have to bother Jason Tate, who's the guy that runs it. I'll have to talk to him.
Yeah, tell him to get some stuff out there so we can see
I will
what
make
we're
him
doing.
do that. Yeah, he's running out of time and he's running out of people's ability to spend more money on conventions and tournaments. So, but I want to try to get out to the East Coast and see your guys' meta. I've met a few of the California people, and obviously I know the Midwest really well, but I don't know a ton of East Coast guys. So I would love to kind of get the cross nation meta conversations, and definitely things like this for the podcasts are always great ways to meet new people too. So look forward to meeting you guys sometime and hopefully be able to get some games.
Yeah, and for last thing I do want to say, because this is we're both from also the Midwest. Like I was out in Kansas for a while and he was out in Utah.
Cool.
West, whatever. But whatever.
Yeah, we don't grow corn out there.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not a corn state.
So
you need more corn.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the Bug Eater Grand Tournament, Bug Eater GT.
Yes. Yeah, I'm running the Guild Ball event there.
Oh, you're running it?
I'm running it.
Oh man, that's all. I was just gonna say, I'm actually trying to go out there for that tournament, so I wanted to plug that. And it's in first weekend in June.
Yes, it's June. Yeah, it's June 2nd and 3rd. I think the Guild Ball thing is only on the Sunday.
It is
though.
on Sunday.
Yeah,
I want
it's
people
just,
to sign up for that because I'm not
yeah.
signing up for it until. I mean, I think there's not really anybody signed up yet.
No, they've announced that there was going to be an event there, and they asked me for a description. And again, the same reason I'm waiting for Adepticon to tell me what the tournament rules are, so that I can post with the tournament. I don't want to post the old ones and then not have them change it and have people expecting the old rules, because we think the rosters are going to change, the season cards are going to change. I want to know what all that information is, so I can basically copy and paste it right off Adepticon's screen and dump it right into Bug Eater.
Yeah. So that Bug Eater tournament, just so everybody knows. Tim's been running it now for several years. I want to say this is the 5th or 6th year he's been running it.
Something like that. Yeah.
This thing has grown into a monster where Tim Royers runs it's really an excellent event. And anybody who is near the Midwest, or even if you're not, the trip out is way worth it because it's become almost like its own mini con almost.
And it's in a high school, if I'm understanding this correct, which is kind of, there's a Midwest one called Recruits that's down in Kansas City that does the exact same thing. It's in the gymnasium and upper gymnasium and lower cafeteria of a high school, and students get like free entry, I believe.
Yeah, and a lot of the money's donated to Tim's debate team, I believe.
Right, exactly. It's almost like a school-supported game convention to turn around and kick right back into school. So they reached out to me. I have a few friends over there in the Omaha meta that are saying like, "Hey, you run tournaments in Des Moines all the time. We see your announcements on the Iowa Guild Ball stuff all the time. Do you want to come over and run a tournament for us for this Bug Eater thing?" I'm like, "Sure."
That's awesome.
So yeah, they're like, "We're gonna put you on Sunday. We have some free tables, and we'll see how many people we get interested." I'm like, "Cool." So we threw the idea out there, and I will be trying to manage, hopefully, a few. I think I might have a few other pundits that will help me with that as well. But we should have.
Yeah, because prize support is always great at that tournament. There's War Machine there, Flames of War. I mean, 40K, just anything you pretty much want to play, they run at that tournament.
Yeah, I've never been, but it looked really cool. And there's like, you for running it, you get free entry. I want you to wander around here on Friday and Saturday. So, and Omaha's only 2 hours away from me, so
awesome.
it's a straight shot on I-80. I can shoot right over there. So I'm like, yeah, I'll bring all my stuff. I'll need people to probably bring mats and all that kind of stuff that I'll have, and I'll have some terrain. We'll make it end up working out just depending on the amount of interest. But hopefully it'll be fun, just kind of casual, get everybody interested in some tournament play over there. That's a good call. I didn't know you knew about that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, I went there the first 3 years they ran it, and then I moved out
That's
here.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So I've never had a chance to beat. Even it's been this close, and I hadn't even really heard of it. So I'm glad to finally be a part of it.
Yeah. Pete's been talking it up. He wants me to go out there with him.
We'll see.
That'd be cool. Well, you should definitely come to MuseCon if you're going to do that too.
Okay.
Right on the way. I think it's like a weekend after, maybe a couple weekends after.
Yeah, I doubt I'm going to be able to leave during that time of year.
That's his money maker.
That's my money time.
Okay.
Yeah, I sell residential solar, so people want to put solar on their roofs when they're seeing their electric bills during the summer.
Hey, that makes sense.
But I just had a quick question for you. I mean, you're pretty well versed in a whole bunch of different game systems. Are there any newer games that maybe people aren't as familiar with that you really like the mechanics of it? It's really clean. It's really balanced. You know, these tighter skirmish type games that are easy buy-ins. Sure. What are some of the highlight ones for you?
I mean, right now Guild Ball is definitely my top one, just because I think it has the cleanest rule set with the lowest amount of models necessary to have to worry about, and I just think it plays so smoothly. I love running tournaments for this game because there's so few rules questions. For me to be called over as a judge, it's usually just to like eye line somebody charging or where the ball will end up landing or something along those lines. But I've played a little Shadespire, which we mentioned earlier. I like it. It's very self-contained. It's very close to the way that when I've talked with Matt Hart and Rich Loxam for this game, the way they were trying to break into it, almost like trying to break into the board game market with the kickoff set. They wanted to try to draw board gamers into Guild Ball by pitching it as a board game. And there are definitely a lot of miniature games that are doing that. I would take a look at Shadespire, and I would look towards God Tier when it kickstarts. Now, I won't say much more about that because I don't know how much more I could talk about it.
I think that we're both pretty, like Pete and I are both pretty excited for God Tier.
Yeah,
So.
I think they're learning all of the mistakes, if the few mistakes they made with Guild Ball, and they are taking that fine tuning we were talking about with Guild Ball and applying it to a fantasy skirmish game that I think will be very exciting for people. In a lot of the same way, with very tight rule set and a low model count. Again, when you buy that game, there's no factions. You just buy the god tier enhanced creature plus its little minions, and you can just combine as many of those as you want to in a team.
Yeah.
And they work together. So I think there's going to be lots of versatility to it. That Kickstarter is starting fairly soon. I think it's almost a pre-Kickstarter, I guess they're doing. It's not even the full one. That's going to be announced at the end of January. I'm almost most excited about that. But for ones that are out there, so that your listeners can actually go out and look at something, I have a very excited meta about Batman. The Batman miniatures game.
Yeah, I've had some friends that have been talking about that too, but
Yeah.
I've heard that the support on it is kind of weird.
It is. They like Infinity are a Spanish company. It's Night Models. Make it. They've had a lot of ups and down issues with that. They had the Marvel miniatures game for a while,
And I
then
heard
they lost.
that one was better. Like people like that one more.
The Batman one is the Batman one is much more strategic. It's about scenario play. Like, you are playing to grab objectives and hold it, and it's very, very tactical. It has a lot of interesting rules that are very flavorful and interesting. It has the entire, DC, Batman Rogues Gallery options for you to play as. They've just dropped a new rule set that's kind of simplified a lot of the things they had before. Because before you had to measure everything in centimeters because it's a Spanish game. But now they've changed everything to inches. Yeah, because everybody was like frantically looking around for a tape measure that measured in centimeters. And they did
What the hell is this?
$5 on a Games Workshop.
See, the value of a tape measure.
Oh, Jesus.
And that's why that game is not doing as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
The one game that
damn widgets.
The one game that I wish that more attention had been played to it, because I really like some of the mechanics on it, and I never got into it enough to find out if it was balanced or broken. Is, did you ever hear of a game called Bushido?
Yes. I've been to Gen Con, obviously, a number of years, and growing up in Wisconsin, I've gone to Gen Con for forever. But that one was always ones that I loved the models on.
Mm-hmm.
I
love the models on those too.
Gorgeous models. I'm a big fan of kind of the feudal Japan fantasy stuff, whether it be Legend of the Five Rings or that sort of thing. So the idea of these giant like Oni demon things and the samurai warriors that are like flying through the air, it looked baller. I never played it. I have no idea what the rules are on it. I was too busy into War Machine and Hordes, and I had a wife that said I couldn't spend more money on miniatures games, so I got rid of those. So
tale as old as time.
Yeah, I could not buy into Bushido, but it looked cool. It just never caught on over here, I don't think. Yeah, I remember it being very small. I remember it not taking up a ton of space, and it didn't have a high model count either.
Yeah, I think you only had to there was like a point total that you got to, but you'd reach that point total with like 4 to 6 or 7 models.
So, are there any other games you guys want to review?
I don't know. Listen, he knows games, so
how long do you want this? How long do you want this podcast to go? I can literally sit here all night.
I think that, with that being said, I think we're gonna, roll some dice and throw some salt. We'll talk to everybody next time.
Well, anytime you guys want me on again, you're more than welcome to. I certainly appreciate you guys inviting me on.